And the first petition is if Fiona is present to present the petition. Councillor Iwasaki, is this... Fiona is just arriving. Maybe we'll turn to Yeah. Oh, and we have Yasser to present his petition. Please come forward, Yasser, and we'll return to Fiona. Thank you. Go ahead, Yasser. Oh, you need to press the microphone so the people outside can hear you too.
Okay, sorry. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay. I'll start again. I'm here representing Moggies of Merri-bek, a grassroots community of residents and animal rescue volunteers without any established lobby group behind us. We built this from scratch because we care deeply about cats and wildlife. Our petition opposing any form of cat curfew has 405 signatures from every single Merri-bek suburb, with the largest numbers being from Brunswick and Coburg. That's roughly equal to the October consultation and more than double the June survey, showing residents remain highly engaged and most were unaware that this change was even proposed. What we've heard since has been moving. Elderly residents fear surrendering long-loved cats. Renters and people facing housing insecurity say they can't build enclosures as landlords won't allow it and they can't afford to rebuild every time they move. One man in a one-room granny flat asked, should my cat really be confined to one small room? And do we really want cat companionship to be tied to how wealthy you are? Shelter volunteers tell us curfews elsewhere didn't reduce impounds, but increased them. As Simone, who's volunteered for years, put it, more healthy cats end up caged and more are euthanized simply because there's no space. We've also seen division and intimidation. People online talk about trapping and destroying cats. And some have even targeted me personally for appearing in an article offering to catch and dispose of my cat. By making outdoor cats effectively illegal, council risks fueling that kind of cat-hating vigilantism. The process has also been concerning. The October damp survey launched originally without a no curfew option, and then partway through quietly added one. Many residents never saw the change and so didn't vote because at first there was no way for them to say no. Yet, despite that, no curfew was still the majority result, and that still wasn't reflected in the main officer report. Even more disturbing, Council in September resolved to delete references to 24-hour curfews, but then they magically reappeared once the survey was underway. How is that an invisible hand keeps guiding us to 24 hours, no matter what Council or residents say? We can actually protect wildlife and support responsible pet ownership through education and desexing, not fines and fear. Even the Bella and Charlie study Council references has been debunked by the Australian Pet Welfare Foundation as overstating pet cat predation by around 16 times. Please accept this petition of 405 voices, abandon any sort of curfews, and resume the humane, manual-style desexing and education approach Council endorsed back in 2022.
Thank you, Yasser.
Thank you. Thanks for your time, Councillor.
Is there a councillor who would brief? Do you want to speak to the petition, Councillor Yildiz? Or you?
No, well put, Yasser. Evidence-based as well. Well done.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Councillor Yildiz, would you like to move the petition?
Happy to move the petition.
And is there a seconder? Councillor Bolton. All those in favour of receiving the petition? I declare that carried. Thank you, Yasser.
Do I turn this off now?
Just leave it on. Yeah, that's fine. And yes, if you could hand that up. Thank you. Really appreciate you coming. Thank you. Now I'd like to invite Fiona to come into the chamber to present her petition. Thank you, Fiona. Please come to the lectern and you have 2 minutes to present your petition.
Good evening, Council. I'm here in a bit of a rush because I cycled from the other side of the city. I've been trying to finish my PhD in biodiversity, sensitive urban design. I'm an ecologist by background. Today I bring you this petition signed by 59 members of the community, not quite as many, but all of them support a 24-hour cat containment for Merri-bek. And I understand that actually there's a loud minority of people here against cat containment because according to the statistics and research conducted by Monash University surveys, 66% of Australians are in support of cat containment. And more than half of the undersigned people on this petition have a cat, and they contain it to keep cats and wildlife safe because they care about both. And this includes walking your cat, creating a catio if you have the means, but just like dogs are not allowed to roam because they harm other animals and people sometimes, it's the same principle for cats. And in fact, the RSPCA Safe for Cats program and Wildlife Welfare Victoria support on their website, cats are at serious risk of being harmed when they're roaming. And in fact, they can be hit by cars, they can catch diseases, they can be bitten by snakes and poisoned. And according to Animal Welfare Victoria, 2 out of 3 cat owners have permanently lost a cat to roaming incidents. So the other thing is that the people on this petition know that every year we delay action, each domestic cat that's roaming, not a stray cat, kills 110 native animals per year, per cat.
I'd like to ask the members of the gallery to please be respectful when other people are speaking.
We specifically requested 24-hour cat containment policy, firstly because research shows that nighttime-only curfews don't stop cats from hunting because they simply shift their hunting schedules to daylight hours, and secondly because nighttime curfews are impractical. So no one is out at night to call the cat's owner to come collect the cat that's breaking curfew. Just like dogs, cats do not have the right to roam at the expense of our unique, fragile, and irreplaceable ecosystems. Cats were brought to this country by European colonizers to recreate European landscapes, to hunt, and in many cases intentionally kill native animals. This is a colonial norm that has led to the ecocide we see today in the biodiversity crisis. But when norms are harmful, we change them. And it's an ecological consensus that cats are a leading cause of biodiversity loss in this country. The question is, will we continue to be complicit in this ecocide? Don't we owe it to our precious and irreplaceable ecosystems?
Fiona,
and all
if you
of the
could wind up. Yes.
Sorry, can I have that second that there was an interruption?
You've had about 30 other seconds,
okay.
but please wind up. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say we owe it to all of the work Merri-bek is doing for biodiversity to not work against ourselves with this one.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Appreciate you coming. Thank you. And councillors, is there a councillor who wishes to speak to the petition and move it? Thank you, Councillor Iwasaki.
I'll just speak briefly as a wildlife biologist. I really appreciate everyone coming, and actually we're all here because we care about our animals and our cats as a cat owner myself. And yes, I'd like to move this petition in support.
Thank you, Councillor Saki. Is there a councillor who wishes to second? Councillor Svensson. And all those in favour of receiving the petition, I declare that carried. So we'll start with the first on the domestic animal management plan. And we have Jenny Cottrell, who is online, who is wanting to make a statement. Hi, Jenny. Please go ahead with your statement.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Jenny Cottrell. I hold qualifications in animal science and conservation and land management. I worked as an animal management officer for 24 years and 10 years in the pound and shelter industry. I implemented and ran the Banyul cat desexing program for its entire lifespan, and I've published 3 peer-reviewed papers on its outcomes. A cat curfew might sound like a simple fix: make a law, all will comply, and the problem will disappear. But curfews only apply to owned cats, and cats can only be enforced if ownership can be proven. Many cats are unidentifiable and can't be caught, making enforcement extremely difficult. The root cause of cat overpopulation is unowned and semi-owned cats, the source of most complaints and impounds. These cats aren't affected by curfews, will keep roaming and breeding, and have no owner to hold accountable. Curfews also create false expectations. Residents will still see roaming cats, and then they'll be expected to trap them. In Merri-bek, only 6% of 954 impounded cats were reclaimed, showing that most are unowned or semi-owned. Based on my research, each impound costs approximately $500. So that worked out to be more than 450,000 last year based on those impound totals, which is a significant burden on ratepayers. Meanwhile, 334 cats were euthanised, highlighting a capacity issue that damages council's social licence to operate. A cat curfew would also worsen social inequity. Many households already struggling with rent and bills. And they don't have any in social housing, quite often no yards, fly screens or landlord permissions for enclosures, making cat ownership a privilege for those with money. Even grants, many disadvantaged residents can't contribute funds. So micro-targeting, desexing, combined with community engagement, focuses on streets with highest complaint and intake rates is what works. Programs succeed because they build trust with the community. Then residents trust officers, they cooperate, they share information. Running a curfew alongside the sexing programs will destroy that trust and reduce participation. My program desexed 869 cats over 8 years, reducing complaints, impounds and costs, all through partnership and engagement, not curfews. I urge councillors to reject the proposed curfew and instead strengthen the sexing programs that help families take ownership of their cats and the cats that they care for. This approach delivers better outcomes for the community, the cats and the environment.
Thank you, Fiona. Appreciate you attending online tonight. Next, we have a statement from Beth Healy, who is in person with us this evening. Please come forward, Beth. Thanks, Beth. Please come forward. It's just through to the lectern. Sorry, it's a bit of a maze out there.
This is all very exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, hi, Beth.
Hello, Mayor and councillors.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yep.
Yes,
Great. I'm just going to start my timer.
Yeah, no problem. There's a little clock there too.
Oh, good. My name is Beth and I am a resident of Merri-bek for about 17 years. I've been doing grassroots cat rescue in the northern suburbs since about 2009. I've trapped and desexed, rehabilitated or rehomed thousands of stray and semi-owned cats in Melbourne. I'm a bit tired. I don't want to have to keep going out at night, sitting there for hours and hours trapping cats. I'm sick of it. I'd rather stay home and watch Netflix. But the number of stray cats is increasing exponentially, and councils have not been able to achieve much to address this, and it's only going to get worse. Council rely very heavily on volunteer rescues like me to actually remove cats from the street. And I don't know that council really understands how much community desexing we actually do. But with desexing costs doubling, or more than doubling, in recent years, it's becoming impossible for us to sustain this community support. And many of the groups run at a loss. And only a small proportion of the grants of their wonderful grant program given to the various animal welfare groups actually is available for cat desexing. The rescues are full. We cannot keep up with the number of stray cats. The real problem is stray cat population, not owned, desexed pet cats. Any cat curfew will achieve nothing to address this problem. I don't understand why we're all having such a bee in our bonnet about cat curfews. when a curfew does nothing to address the actual council damp objection, which is addressing the overpopulation of cats. And that made me have a think about what's been happening recently, and I want some questions that I want to present to the councillors before you decide what your vote is going to be tonight. Why was the clear no curfew majority result from the October vote missing from the council officer summary report? Why does a majority of less than 200 votes in September represent the people spoke, while a clear majority of 400 votes in October doesn't? How is it that a separate and very distinct 2 votes, 12 and 24-hour results, later combined be combined against normal good statistical practice? This artificially inflates support for a 24-hour curfew. For me personally, I can't help but wonder, why is it that a small number of people who happen to control the narrative within council are able to repeatedly introduce a 24-hour curfew which has been rejected at every turn? And I want to leave with just 2 really key points that I want to close with. One of the biggest opportunity for councils to reduce the stray cat population humanely and sustainably is to get residents to take responsibility for the semi-owned cats that they're feeding. Any sort of mandated curfew, 12 or 24 hours now or 24 hours in next year, will prevent residents from adopting the stray cats they are feeding.
Beth, if you could wind
Even
up,
if
please.
desexing is free. Desexing programs and curfews are not compatible. My apologies for going over.
No problem.
I urge the councils to remain faithful to the objective of the DAMP plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
We now have Imogen Ebsworth, who is online with a statement. And I'd like to also acknowledge and welcome Councillor Adam Pulford.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Hello. Hi, Imogen. Thank you for coming online tonight. Please go ahead with your statement. Can you hear us, Imogen?
Imogen, can you hear me?
Hi, Imogen. Please go ahead. You're going to need to unmute.
Hi there.
Yes, thank you. Please go ahead.
Thanks very much for having me, Merri-bek Council. My name is Imogen Ebsworth from the Invasive Species Council. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to your review of your domestic animal management plan and consideration of measures around cats. Every year in Greater Melbourne area, 62 million birds, frogs, lizards and other wildlife, including possums, are killed by roaming cats. Therefore, I really hope the Council, which has an incredibly admirable draft nature plan, will take on board our recommendation that you move to full 24/7 cat containment. The really good news about moving to 24/7 cat containment is it's actually what's best for cats as well. There's really significant research showing that cats live for up to 10 years longer when they're stopped from roaming and are given a happy indoor life, including access such as catios. That's simply because they're not subject to being hit by cars, contracting diseases, and also getting into fights. So the result that you can have if you are moved to cat containment means that you can have a fantastic outcome for your wildlife as well as for beloved pets in your community. I would really urge the Council to make a measured and steady plan based with significant education of your community and support towards transitioning to 24/7 cat containment. It doesn't work well if you just arbitrarily impose it on the community. It's a very large cultural change you're trying to pull off, but I think you'll find also it's one that's broadly supported by your community. There's been significant polling and research on Australian sentiments towards cat containment now for a number of years, and consistently it finds, including for Greater Melbourne, that 2/3 of the community understand that how we look after cats as a pet needs to change and that cat containment is an appropriate response. This very much mirrors the change we went through culturally as a community around dogs, where it used to be acceptable for dogs to roam, and then we realised that they had an enormous impact on our wildlife and also on the community amenity, and we moved to ensuring that people needed to have them registered and also kept on their properties. So I really hope you'll do the same for cats. It would make an enormous difference to the wildlife in your shire. It very much would help you achieve the aims you've set out in your draft nature plan. And I believe that if you make a plan to transition your community there, you will find that the community moves happily with you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming online. Next we have in person Kathleen Chapman. Sorry. Next we have in person Kathleen Chapman. Please come forward, Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. Nice to see you in person.
You too. So good evening, Mayor and councillors. My name is Kathleen Chapman and I'm from Moggies of Merri-bek. I've been rescuing stray cats for 20 years. I work with stray cats as well as cats rescued from pounds and shelters, and I'm also an advocate for humane and evidence approaches to animal management. I'd like to start with a quote from the Australian Pet Welfare Foundation's position statement on cat containment, which goes to the heart of the issue. Mandated cat containment actively prevents the resolution of the problem of wandering cats because it presents a huge barrier to cat semi-owners taking full ownership of the cats that they are feeding. In 2024-25, Merri-bek impounded 954 cats and only 57 were reclaimed by owners, a return rate of just 6%. The vast majority of cats that are being impounded are unowned or semi-owned. Semi-owned meaning someone feeds them but doesn't consider themselves to be their owner. The key to effectively reducing the cat population is to get semi-owners to take full ownership of the cats that they are feeding. And this was done very successfully by Banyule Council. This involves targeting the areas where most complaints are coming from and where cats are being impounded, speaking to people who are feeding these cats and offering free desexing, free microchipping and free registration. Any curfew represents a huge barrier to getting people to take ownership of the cats they are feeding. People will not take up a free service if they believe they will then be fined for being unable to comply with legislation such as a cat curfew. Council needs to work with people who are feeding outdoor cats as they are a key part of the equation in reducing the outdoor cat population. The community cat program in Banyule resulted in a 66% reduction in cat impoundments, an 82% reduction in euthanasia, and a 36% reduction in complaints. The program cost around $77,000 but saved council more than $440,000. In contrast, while probably more than 100 Australian councils have introduced cat curfews, there is no evidence whatsoever to support their effectiveness. Why would council choose to introduce a cat curfew, which has no evidence to support it, instead of a targeted cat desexing program, the effectiveness of which has been clearly documented in several peer-reviewed journal articles? Furthermore, a cat curfew is simply unenforceable unless you're relying on neighbourhood vigilantes to trap and impound other people's cats. This has happened in Darebin with someone setting up an Instagram page to encourage people to report cats out after dark so that she can trap them. Please do what is right, reject any form of cat curfew and instead vote to implement an evidence-based targeted cat desexing program. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kathleen. We'll now resume and we'll return to the Domestic Animal Management Plan 2025 to 2029. And Councillor Svensson would like to move
move the alternative.
an alternate and
That's
Councillor
been-
Iwasaki to second.
Yes, that alternative has been circulated around to councillors earlier today. So I'll speak to that. It's similar to the officer's recommendation, but has some important changes. But I do want to note it's incredibly obvious from all the people today, all the people who've spoken, the engagement that we've had, it's incredibly obvious how much our community really cares about this issue. Our community cares deeply about the welfare of animals, not just our pets, but also stray cats and native animals as well. What this alternative motion does is it strikes a balance between protecting our wildlife and protecting cats. So what it proposes is, after a prolonged lead-in period of community education, it introduces an overnight curfew alongside a grandfathered 24-hour curfew that will only apply to new cat registrations. What this means is that if you already have a cat, they will only be mandated to stay indoors overnight, or contained overnight. Though, of course, anyone can choose to keep their cats indoors, as I do with my 3 rescued cats, Curie, Jarvis, who was a stray colony cat, and Alfie, who I actually adopted from one of the speakers earlier tonight. This provides flexibility for those residents who might have older cats who they're worried might not be able to transition to 24-hour containment. And what it does for residents who are welcoming new cats into their family is they'll be given information and support on how to keep their cats healthy and happy at home while contained on their property. Support will be provided to them, which includes a grant program designed to support low-income residents, including renters, to help them contain their cats. Our approach to enforcement won't be a punitive one. When cats are found roaming when they shouldn't be, our officers will return them directly back to their homes wherever possible and provide education and support to owners before even considering enforcement. This will happen alongside a ramping up of our very successful cat desexing and vaccination program, with a focus on desexing and rehoming unowned community cats. Speakers earlier tonight highlighted just how important these community desexing programs are. And the great thing is that it doesn't have to be an either or. We can act to desex and rehome stray and semi-owned cats, whilst also caring for pet cats and wildlife by keeping cats contained. We can and we should do both. Implementing a cat curfew actually makes it a lot easier for us to identify which cats are unowned cats and which ones are lost cats as well, and to return those lost cats home. At the moment, when you see a cat on the street, you don't know whether it's lost, a stray cat, or just a neighbourhood cat out for a stroll. Just like what we see with dogs, because they have to be contained, when you see a dog out on its own, most people take action to ensure that they're reunited with their families, or in the case of stray dogs in Merri-bek, they're cared for and put up for adoption. Research shows that cat containment is better for cats. They live up to 10 years longer when contained. It's better for our wildlife, with millions of native birds, mammals and reptiles killed every year by pet cats. And it's fairer. It brings expectations for cat ownership in line with our expectations for other pets like dogs. There are no other animals that we have that are allowed to roam uncontained with the same impact on our wildlife. As someone who absolutely adores cats, I've had them my entire life, and also adores our native wildlife, I urge all councillors to support this alternative motion.
Thank you, Councillor Svensson. Councillor Iwasaki.
Thank you. I'm a scientist who spent over a decade working in ecology and invasive species management. And the science is clear. Cats, both feral and roaming, have a devastating impact on our native Australian wildlife. I understand that this is a heated topic, and I acknowledge there's a lot of anxiety and fear. But I would like to note that this is not the first curfew in Australia or even Victoria. Already, a majority of Victorian councils, representing a cross-section of the entire political spectrum, have enacted cat containment policies, with more coming. And when I walk around Brunswick at night, I see many roaming cats that I know are not feral. I know they're not feral because I'm a crazy cat lady, and I like to give them pets and chat with them, like I'm sure some of us in the gallery do, especially our community's beloved cat, Prince, who lives in Orient Grove. And if any of you stay here until the end of the meeting, I promise I will show you 47 videos of my cat playing fetch, because I'm so proud of her little smooth brain. And so the animal management plan tonight we have is not about blame or punishment. It's about balance and care. By adopting this plan, we're not only protecting wildlife, we're protecting cats themselves. Indoor and nighttime containment leads to years of longer lives. I have rescued a cat this year of somebody who was in the gallery protesting cat containment 2 years ago. It had almost died after being on the streets for 6 weeks. And these policies can save hundreds of dollars in vet bills. It reduces unwanted roaming in residence yards. And I think that's really important to note that with all this talk about cats, over 90% of Merri-bek do not own cats, and their rights must also be considered. Their rights to peace on their property and in their own gardens. So in that regard, the amendments before us make this approach fair, evidence-based, and compassionate, starting with night curfews, grandfathering exemptions for currently registered cats, supporting research partnerships, and with review points to guide us along the way. It acts to consider both feral and roaming cats, which are not mutually exclusive, to care about. It also makes provisions for and acknowledges that people may have difficulty with cats who have grown used to being indoors. And we take special interest in that and finding equitable solutions. This is a responsible science-led path forward that takes into account both care for animals, the rights of all of our residents, and our duty to protect the living systems that we share the city with. So if you boo, you get to watch cat videos.
Thank you, Councillor Iwasaki. Is there a councillor speaking in opposition? Councillor Bolton.
If cat curfews worked and were humane, I would support them. And they sound simple, but they're not. I agree with education and assistance to try and help people voluntarily contain their cats. And there are many, many people who do contain their cats. But I'm opposed to a cat curfew being mandatory. The problem with the recommendation for a curfew is that the two major elements of the cat management aspect of the domestic animal management plan that's before us work against each other. So on one hand, the council is proposing that we do free desexing and try to persuade people to adopt the semi-owned cats that they might be feeding. On the other hand, the council is proposing cat curfew. Even the modified one that Councillor Svensson's put forward will result in hardship. In fact, I can predict that people will stop adopting anything other than kittens from the shelters, leaving a problem with the older cats. And one of the problems is you have to understand what it's like working for animal management officers working in disadvantaged communities where there's no facilities to be able to keep a cat inside, maybe a large family in a small flat, no fly screens, no nothing, and the kids are letting cats out all of the time. Or someone in a bungalow, a one-room bungalow with a disability who has to enter the main house multiple times a day to get food, but can't possibly juggle everything, and someone with a disability. It's a real example. The problem with, so basically, if you persuade someone to get their cat desexed and then there's the threat of a curfew, I know we've been told it will be operated in a compassionate way, but as soon as a law is on the books, it can be dragged out. Different council officers will be more sympathetic, less sympathetic. Basically, we're introducing a policy where the council officers tell us there's no evidence that cat curfews work or don't work. There's no evidence either way that they work to reduce predation of wildlife. I'm talking about pet cats because semi-owned and unowned cats aren't affected by the curfew. We've also, what will happen is people who are financially on the edge but don't have a healthcare card can't afford cat containment options. It's not just people on a healthcare card. So if people can't comply with a curfew, even new registrations, people might adopt a cat not realising it can't hack being inside. It gets depressed by being inside all the time. So people will either let the cat go wild to become a stray cat, relinquish it to a shelter, give it to someone in a council area without a curfew, or risk it that no one traps it or kills it. Now, we also know Merri-bek only has, I'll finish on this one point, Merri-bek only has 2 animal management officers and 1 animal collection officer. That means council will be relying on residents to do the enforcing by getting cat traps to trap cats, and it might not be in a very humane way.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Abood.
I forgot to say I've got a foreshadowed motion.
Okay, I'll take that on notice. You've got a foreshadowed motion. Thank you, Councillor Bolton.
Thank
Councillor
you,
Abood.
Mayor. I agree with Councillor Bolton's comments about the 24-hour curfews, which is why I feel more comfortable about the overnight curfew, which is the position that I took with the draft being released. And since the draft was released, I've attended lots of conversations with the different stakeholders that are passionate about this particular subject. I'm dog people, but my sister is a crazy cat lady and always has been. Her cats are indoor cats. She's been involved, I mean, she might know some of you people, I'm not sure, but she's been involved in helping to rehouse, cats, and she's very well versed in the stuff that you all know about how you introduce a new cat to established cats and, like what it takes to actually help a cat to get a new environment ultimately. So I do understand that this won't necessarily be straightforward, but I think there are ways to coax a cat inside overnight, and that's why I'm happy with that particular course of action in this case. And the reason I'm even supporting that is because, like we heard from Helen and Maureen, sometimes the state government has an objective and it's on to council to deliver that objective, and other times the state government is delivering something and we have a voice in that conversation. Now, the problem in this case for us is that the state government's cat management strategy in its themes identifies, and I'm reading because I don't want to get it wrong, that it identifies the goal of protecting the environment and nature and native wildlife from the negative impact of cats, right? So this is the canary in the coal mine. If we had have known that activity planning, that activity work was coming earlier, we could have told you earlier. We know that the state government wants cats under control. So from my perspective, considering we're tasked with the job of delivering, and not just us, but all LGAs are tasked with the job of delivering outcomes and the domestic animal management plan, and it's dogs as well as cats. This is notification that the state wants your cats inside as well. So this is an opportunity for us to do it in what I think is a realistic way, to almost give you forewarning that nighttime initially, it's not going to be the kind of scenario where there's a crossing supervisor to hustle all the cats inside and everyone gets a fine. This is a different kind of scenario. It's about teaching us to change our behaviour. But in the meantime, it's important to acknowledge, and you all know this, cat trapping is already happening, and that our data tells us that requests for cat traps are higher than they've ever been. So it probably is a very good idea to get cats in, cats owned, cats desexed, colonies broken down, like all of that stuff is actually probably a good idea for the cats, and I don't want to bang on about some of the stuff that's already been said and probably will be said, but I do think that this idea of the overnight curfew is the best way that we can try and deal with the domestic animal management plan from our perspective on behalf of the ideals that the state government is setting.
Thank you, Councillor Abood. Councillor Yildiz.
Thanks. I'll be very quick. Just a couple of things. I want to make it clear. People might say, oh, you don't care about protecting wildlife. That's not the case. This proposed curfew, even though it's not 24 hours, is still a curfew. It's not the way to do it. I don't think we should be going down the curfew path. It's symbolic. I think it's really unenforceable, and it punishes the wrong people. It really does. The facts are clear. Most owned cats in Merri-bek are already desexed. They're microchipped, and they're kept indoors at night. The real issue is stray and semi-owned cats, and this policy doesn't do much to really address that. if in the official survey a majority, 44.8% voted for no curfew, 37.9% voted at the time for a 24-hour curfew, but 17.5% wanted a night curfew. Now, so if you think about it, the majority of residents don't want any curfew, and we should respect that democratic outcome. The countless messages, the countless text messages, and what's really, really sad is some of the comments that were made on social media about cats being suddenly mysteriously disappearing. Really, really borders on threats. That's highly inappropriate. And the countless messages that we've received, I think people are getting really sick and tired of us meddling in what people can and can't do as in their homes now. And personal liberties, I think, are being gradually attacked. I think most residents have had enough. And if you think about a resident before mentioned Banyule Council, they didn't rely on a curfew. They funded a targeted desexing and education program, and what they found was that the cat intakes dropped by 66% and euthanasia dropped by 82%. That's what really works. That's a council that had smart evidence-based policies. Meanwhile, councils that introduced curfews reported higher complaints, they reported impoundments, and they reported euthanasia, not less. Just in concluding, the biggest issue here is this: how are we going to enforce this? Councillor Bolton mentioned 2 officers. So we're going to have officers roaming the streets and then saying to residents, your cat should be in the lounge room. Why is it out? I mean, it's not realistic, and it's a waste of money. It unfairly impacts on renters, pensioners, low-income families who can't afford to retrofit their entire home to build cat enclosures. It risks forcing people to surrender pets they love, increasing shelter pressure and euthanasia. Exactly the opposite of what we're really trying to do. So it's not that I don't care about wildlife. I want measures that actually work, not another unforeseeable feel-good rule. Let's be evidence-based, let's be transparent, and show some logic, fairness, and respect for people's personal freedoms.
Thank you, Councillor Yildiz. Councillor Irvin.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I want to thank the officers for the work that's gone into the domestic animal management plan. It's been so much effort to develop proactive solutions to managing our domestic animals and to respond to community feedback on the draft. There's a lot to commend in this final version of the plan that we are adopting tonight, and I am going to speak to the main item that's kind of on everyone's mind, which is the introduction of the cat containment. And as other people have mentioned, we've heard support on this item, we've heard opposition to this, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that there are strong feelings on both sides. And our job in these sorts of cases as councillors is to really zoom out from that and make decisions for the best interest of the entire community, including future generations. There are 2 things in common with what we heard, whether you're in support or oppose this. Firstly, people care about wildlife in our city and want to ensure that we're applying the best methods for protecting wildlife. And secondly, people care about their cats and want to ensure that cat welfare is being considered. Everyone wants an outcome where those 2 things are achieved. I think we just disagree on the detail of how to get there. No cat owner enjoys seeing their cat kill wildlife. As an example, my sister and her housemates years ago owned a cat who was allowed to roam during the day. And one day they came home to find their sweet fluffy kitty with a feather caught in its whisker. And when they entered the house, they found the hallway just covered in feathers because the cat had killed a little spotted dove. It was super distressing for my sister to have to clean up that mess while also trying not to think about that bird's final moments. Now, spotted doves are not rare or endangered, but they are a species that has found a niche in our cities, and they deserve to be able to live their lives without being killed by our pets. But as I mentioned, this isn't just about wildlife. It's also about cat welfare, which we all want to improve. Indoor-only cats live longer and have lower vet bills. They're at lower risk of attacks from other animals and from being hit by cars. And sadly, my sister's cat is an example of this as well. One day she came home very sick and the vet couldn't identify the issue. It seemed she'd either eaten something toxic or been bitten by something. Either way, something outside the home ended up killing her. What is before us in this alternative motion is a practical way to protect our wildlife, protect our cats, and provide a transition for owners and cats. I want to thank my fellow councillors for approaching this issue in a spirit of curiosity and collaboration to achieve this balanced approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Irvin. Are there any councillors? Councillor Politis.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say two things really quickly. And one is on the subject of evidence. I've heard arguments both sides of the fence. I've looked at the evidence and from what I can see, there's insufficient evidence on either side to support arguments either way. We do have some examples of councils who have implemented these measures, and what I'd really like to do is have the opportunity to take a closer look at how effective their measures have been and also the cost of it. Because what we do know is that we can pass these bylaws, but it is the cost of compliance that is incredibly expensive. And we don't know, because we don't have the evidence, how effective these measures have been. The last thing I want to say is I do want to thank the officers for their work. It's been an incredible amount of work. And I also do want to acknowledge the work that's gone into the motion that Councillor Svensson has put forward. I thought it was very creative, and there's a lot of work that's gone into it. But once again, I think it would be pretty hard to enforce and very, very expensive. And I go back to the issue of evidence, and I don't think there is sufficient evidence there to support cat curfews at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Politis. Are there any further speakers? Yeah, I might just briefly speak. Yeah, thank you. So I'd like to thank the people in the gallery that have attended tonight and those people that have taken the time to write in. It's a issue that affects a lot of people, and a lot of people are passionate about this particular issue. And I think when we're talking about animal welfare, as Councillor Irvin said, it is about cat welfare, as well as getting a balancing act right. And the question for me comes down to whether a legally enforceable curfew is the right way forward. And from my perspective as a pet owner, and I've had pets ever since I was a child, mandating a curfew is not the right way forward. What it comes down to, for me, what it comes down to as being a responsible pet owner is council-supported de-sexing programs, support for the volunteers and the organisations that put so much time and effort, their own money and their own compassion into supporting our loved pets, funding for those organisations, and also de-sexing programs and education, how to be a responsible pet owner. It's not about mandating curfews and implementing laws. This is not where council should be looking. Council should be looking at education. Council should be looking at support and de-sexing programs. That's where the evidence lies conclusively for me. That's where the numbers lie conclusively, and that's where my vote will be tonight. I'm not going to support a curfew. And I'll turn to Councillor Svensson to close the debate. Thank you, Councillor Svensson.
Thank
Thank you. I do want to echo Councillor Davidson's comments about thanking everybody for being involved. Anyone who's had anything much to do with council knows that it can be really bloody difficult to get people interested in what's going on with council. It can be really hard to get people to engage. Back in 2022, when we did an engagement specifically just about cat curfews, it was actually one of our biggest engagements we've ever had close to 2,000 people. So we know that people care, but we also know that people are kind of getting a bit sick of being asked about it, because every engagement that we've done since, we've struggled to get anywhere near those numbers. In the 2022 engagement that we did, we had close to 2,000 responses, and the overwhelming majority in that case was in support of a 24-hour cat curfew. We've seen 2 smaller engagements since, with the next engagement had, once again, majority support for a 24-hour cat curfew, and you've heard about the recent engagement as well. So we're hearing that we've got decreasing returns of people who are engaging, because I think people really want to see action being taken on this issue. I think the community are sick of being asked, of giving their opinion, and then council not acting with that information. So I think we really need to take that into account. And the results that we're seeing overall, when you look at all of those consultations, are mirrored in the high quality research that's been done across Victoria, across Australia, about people wanting cat containment. I also want to touch on some of the things that have been mentioned so far. People have talked about the Banyule approach. The Banyule approach sounds absolutely bloody fantastic, and that's why we based our community desexing approach off of Banyule's approach. We've desexed close to 1,000 cats through this low and no cost desexing program, and we're looking to ramp that up further in this stamp. So wholeheartedly agree with those comments. We can and should and will be doing more of that. We've heard people say that it's going to cost a hell of a lot, that there's going to be increases in impoundments, and we don't know what's happening at other councils. But that's not actually true. We've spoken to a council very close by in Whittlesea, just to the northeast of us, who have implemented a 24-hour curfew, and they have seen no significant increase in costs. They've seen no significant increase in impoundments, and what they've actually seen is a significant decrease in nuisance cat complaints, the exact sort of results that you want to be seeing. So we don't have high quality research studies yet, and that's part of the reason that this alternative motion that I'm proposing has us partnering with researchers so that we can conclusively say that what we're doing is or isn't working, so we can start building that evidence base. So hopefully we can stop having an argument where we go, we don't know what the evidence is one way or the other. We can help build that evidence base, because we do know where there's evidence, and the evidence says that cats kill wildlife. And let's try and figure out a way to address that. Let's partner with researchers. This proposal also reviews the program, so there's opportunities to change things. If parts of the programs aren't working, it reviews it at 12 months and 24 months after implementation.
If you could wind up, Councillor Svensson, please.
So I just want us to think about the fact that, as Councillor Irvin said, we have a responsibility to zoom out and think about what's best for the community, what's best for our residents, what's best for the parts of our community who can't advocate for themselves, the wildlife, the animals. I urge you to all think about that.
Thank you, Councillor Svensson. Now I will put Councillor Svensson's amendment to the vote. In the event that that is not successful, I note that Councillor Bolton had an alternative foreshadowed. So all those in favour of Councillor Svensson's amendment? All those against? I declare that carried. Yes, sure. So all those in favour of Councillor Svensson's amendment? So we have Councillor Kat Theodosis, Councillor Svensson, Councillor Abood, Councillor Irvin, Councillor Iwasaki, Councillor Pulford. All those against Councillor Svensson's amendment? Councillor Yildiz, Councillor Davidson, Councillor Politis and Councillor Bolton. And Councillor Miles was an abstention. Thank you. We'll now move on to the next report in the agenda, which is 7.2, Melbourne Water Storm Water Flood Map, Council submission. Is there a council?